If you are someone who loves someone who is mentally unstable, I stand beside you today as a sister, as a mother, as a friend, as a wife. I can see things that I never thought that I would see. And so it's kind of interesting that God will humble us. We think a thing, we judge people. For example, there is this lady in my town, my city, that walks around with a buggy and garbage bags. She's, these different things, and she's homeless. And I always wonder, because, we all have a story. And so, what I think is so important is that we judge people without knowing their story. And so, I always wondered about this lady. For years, I've thought, what happens to somebody who is homeless? Like, where is their family? And she is mentally unstable. And so I always wonder, where's her family? Like, do we just throw away people who are mentally unstable? Do we just don't have a care in the world until the Lord let me see for myself that we don't know what's going to happen in this world? We don't know what's going to happen with our time here. We don't know what's going to happen. And we can judge people all day long and say what we'll do and what we think their family should have done until we walk the path ourselves. And I can see the level of concern that it will put on a person, a family that has to figure out how to maneuver this very unique situation, right? And so I get it. I get it. I get it that it's tough when somebody you love is mentally unstable. It's tough because while we can judge them all day long, we never know. And we do see how a change in life circumstances will take us to the edge, right? Life can be lifing, and we can see how the turmoil, the changes in life, the seasons in life, how it will take us to places, dark places that we don't want to be in. We never thought we see. But I have compassion today for those who love somebody who is mentally ill. Of course, I have compassion for those that are mentally ill because I see the torment that they go through. But if you are somebody that you love is mentally unstable, and I'll give you another example. I was talking to a lady several years ago. She was a student in my class, and she casually one day said that her son needed help. He needed to talk to somebody or see somebody. And, it kind of took me back for a minute because I was very, very concerned immediately. My heart has always been about emotional health. I always think it's so important that we really take care of ourselves. And so my first initial judgment was, I'm going to go to bat for mine. And so I was thinking if you can't get your son to get help, then you got to bring the help to him. And I still believe to a certain extent we have to do some things, right? But I'm like Helen Baylor, my life is the way it is because my grandmother prayed for me. And she talks about in her testimony, her grandmother prayed for her. And I know that prayer changes things. And so I know that I don't have the answers. I don't know how God is going to fix it, but I believe that he will. And so I believe it's important that we do all that we can do, right? We can't just say pray to God and then we don't do anything. I think we got to do some stuff too. And so, my son told me years ago, he was like, someone that he knew had committed suicide, and I was telling him to pray, and he was saying, what do you do when you get through praying? The thing is still there. And so I think that's a valid question, right? And so I believe in praying, right? I believe that we have to be diligent in praying. And I believe there's a certain level a high level of trusting God with the answers, seeking God for the whatever He desires for us. And so I think there's a certain level where you have to be asking God to show you what to say and how to say it and when to say it. And I think that probably prayer is the paramount. But I think that God has given man wisdom in books that therapists have written, and we can read things and we can take it to them. And so, it's kind of a catch-22, because if you don't read the books and try to help your relative or friend or whoever it is mentally ill, then you're still stuck with the burden of carrying the incidents, I'll say, things that when they have these moments where they want to commit suicide and they're down and out, you're still going to have to deal with these because they come to us because we're their loved ones. So if you don't have something in your toolbox, if you don't have something that you can say, something that you can question, something that you can, you're left with just the burden. You're not saying anything, you're not doing anything, you're just left with the burden of just praying and not doing anything about it. Prayer works, that's not what I'm saying. But I think too, there is a level of not knowing, like, a person who is not mentally stable may not be able to comprehend on the level that maybe somebody who's not mentally unstable, what they're saying. They may not be able to comprehend what the person is saying, but I still believe that there is something that we can do. There's something that we can say, and it looks different for everybody. But there's all kind of resources. There's all kind of tools. There's all kind of books, and I believe that there is some things that we should do if we can. And so sometimes the burden is so heavy, so fast, or the burden is so heavy, we cannot be able to deal with it because it's just life is lifing for us, and then we have to deal with this person who is, or try to help this person who is mentally unstable. And so it is very, very tough. It's very, very challenging. So I understand your pain. I stand with you today in prayer, in asking God for help for all of us to be able to know how to deal with it, for healing, for the people who are dealing with this, first, dealing with this thing head on themselves. I pray for people who can get a word through, who can say the right thing, who have the right timing, who can be kind and who can be compassionate. And so this is not something that's going to go away. And I think we have made it put such a negative connotation on it until people don't even talk about it. They just suffer in silence. And I think what an injustice we've done to people, that we don't even allow them space to be able to say what they're dealing with, And so I think, it's particularly challenging, especially if you have more than one person that you love that is mentally unstable, and you're trying to maneuver this space, right? You're trying to maneuver your own life, things that are happening, your life is lifing, and you're still trying to help. And I don't think that we can turn a deaf eye to it, right? Because it's not going to go away. And I just look at the things that I've seen recently in the news where a gentleman was released from prison and he killed his mother and his brother. And so it's just doing what we can, right? It's doing what we can, saying what we can, praying as much as we can, to be able to help. And if we know somebody who is this is a loved one of them, theirs, we can help them, we can hug them, we can pray with them, we can offer an encouraging word for them, we can say things or share things that have been helpful for us. But this is not a thing that's going to go away. It's not going to go away. It's just something that we've got to learn what we need to do to try to help ourselves, what we need to do to try to help other people, and really be compassionate, because we never know when the tides are changing, or we never know about all the people who suffer in silence, all the people who are ready to just give it up, all the people who are just like, I've done all I can do, I'm throwing my hands up, I'm going to commit suicide. It's just, we have to be compassionate to people. We have to be always offering an encouraging word, always asking people, paying attention to how they look, how they sound. Do the words line up with the body language? We always got to be paying attention, and we always got to share love to people, show people love, give people Have something positive to say. Always trying to help people to, whatever we can do, however we can do it. We always need to be helping people because we don't know their story. We don't know what's happening behind closed doors. All we know typically is what somebody shows us. But I would bet it's like in our lives, all of our lives are like icebergs. There's so many things that are underneath the surface that we don't show, we don't share, and then we suffer alone, and then we don't, people are wondering like what happened. I just talked to this person, I don't know what happened, and it's so many things, right? It's some of it is we're just not paying attention. The words "I'm fine" versus how this person looks or acts, they don't even line up. That it's just a mixture, and so the body doesn't lie, right? The body keeps score. So we just got to be paying attention. We got to be cognizant of how we can help other people, how we can share God's love, how we can show encouragement, how we can be praying for people, even if we don't know. Because sometimes people, even if you pry or ask or inquire, people still won't tell you, but you can still be praying for them. And so just something to be thinking about is be compassionate towards people everywhere you go with every situation, because you don't know their story. You don't know the iceberg. You don't know what's underneath that iceberg, that tip that you're looking at. And so most people are dealing with a lot of things. And so just be compassionate today. Be kind. Help somebody if you can help somebody.